Hey YouTube, just a quick video to start this week. I was thinking a little more about the presupposition itself and the seeming need for Cy and Eric Hovind to have absolutes, to have certainty, and this sort of binary thinking, all or nothing. And I was wondering, thinking to myself, why do they need to have these, the absolutes and the certainty? Because really it's not representative of most of our lives, right? It's very seldom things are binary. There's usually shades of gray in between. And sure, you're certainly, A and not A sort of thing, right? There's the law of non-contradiction applies to everything. However, most of the things that we do in our day-to-day life are some degrees in between, not necessarily absolutes. And of course, they seem to have this real need to have the absolutes. And of course, they use parlor tricks because what they'd like to do is challenge you on absolutes. So they use parlor tricks like saying, is there such a thing as absolutes? And sometimes people will say, no, there's no absolutes. Are you absolutely sure? And okay, there's no absolutes. Self-refuting statement. Okay, fine. But why the need for absolutes? And what I think it boils down to is absolutes and certainty in this binary thinking are convenient for them. It makes it very easy for them to then be able to dismiss every other religion out of hand, and even some other metaphysical claims that I don't think they even entertain. There's many other metaphysical explanations for our world that go beyond theism, and they won't even entertain these. And mostly it's because they've got this certainty, right? It's very convenient for them because they can just say, I've had it revealed to me. I saw a video recently talking about atheism and how it's not very intelligent because it's not very smart to be an atheist, because the only way you could actually be an atheist would be if you knew everything. Then you'd know there was no God. And the guy didn't obviously understand what atheism really means. But see, this, of course, the same thing applies to, this guy was a Christian. The same thing applies to him. He doesn't know everything either, and he hasn't researched every other claim out there. And of course, the answer could be something that no one has claimed as of yet. We could all be in the dark. But when you have the certainty, when you can say, I've had it revealed to me, and it's absolute, well, then you can just reject any possible other claim out of hand, because of course they're making a claim to be have a connection to omniscience. But what I find really interesting is the closed-mindedness. So Eric Hovind has said, I'm open-minded, but I'm closed-minded to the truth, right? And he loves science too. And the closed-mindedness to the truth, really, the truth doesn't change based on what you research or what you do, of course, right? The truth is something that you uncover. And so the only reason that you would be closed-minded to the truth is if you were protecting yourself from potential truths. Because, of course, Eric, the truth doesn't need your protection, right? I mean, the truth is the truth regardless. So you don't need to be closed-minded to the truth. You should be open-minded to any possibility and let the chips fall where they may. And I've heard many, people say online, on YouTube and that sort of thing, of course, I'd rather know, more correct things and as few incorrect things as possible. And I think that's, where true open-mindedness comes in. Now, of course, there are plenty of atheists and agnostics that are closed-minded, but I think the goal should always be as much open-mindedness as possible. And if you're going to say you're closed-minded to the truth, I think you've removed yourself from the discussion. It's certainly not as though, I know Eric has also said, we all, when it comes to science, we all have the same facts or the same data, we just didn't have different interpretations. Well, that would be true if you had, interpretations that were honest and that were malleable. But I think once you've closed yourself off to other possibilities as being closed-minded to the truth, you've removed yourself, from the discourse. You just don't have a place there. It's arrogant, but really it's only arrogant to himself, right? Because he's just closing himself off to the possibilities of finding the truth. And interestingly enough, if what he believes is actually true, the last thing he would need to do is be closed-minded to the truth, right? And along the same lines, Sai sometimes will ask people who's their authority, their ultimate authority, and usually it's when it's talking about Scripture. And if he would say, if you're operating under your own authority, or are you operating under biblical authority, God's authority? And I think that's dangerous. Actually, I don't think it's a good idea, even if you were to still follow the path and be a Christian, to have anybody's authority other than your own, because ultimately you're the one who's going to have to live with the outcome of the decisions, the choices that you make. And like I say, you may still follow the same path, but I think it's very important to maintain your own authority. Ultimately, that's all you have. At any rate, I think, as I've said before, I don't think there's any point in debating any of these people anymore. I think that the apologetic is showing the end of the evidential arguments, and that's really important and powerful. But in light of the fact that someone is going to be closed-minded to the truth, there's no sense, as I've stated before, bringing honesty into a dishonest debate. So really what they're doing is they're capitalizing on the fact that most of the people they're speaking to are somewhat malleable, that they are open-minded, and they are not. And so they're capitalizing on that, and so they use it to their advantage. And I think it's important, if someone were to be discussing these things with them, I would like to ask them, well, why is absolute so important? Why is certainty so important? And just because you've claimed certainty doesn't mean you have it, because you can't demonstrate it. If you could demonstrate it, that'd be a whole other kettle of fish. And a lot of ears might perk up if they could demonstrate the certainty that they seem to feel. But they can't, right? And so, how certain can it really be if it can't even be demonstrated? But I think if someone were to counter them and say, well, why the need for absolutes? Like, what are we even talking about here? There are very few things in our normal day-to-day lives that are that binary, that are either on or off. And I think really, as I've said before, it's a convenience for them. It's very simple. They can dismiss anything out of hand by having this absolute and having this absolute certainty. Whether it exists or not, it's a very, very convenient tool. Thanks for watching. Have a good week.